Dr. Kevin Blake has consistently stated that the Jamaica Constabulary Force is not opposed to their implementation. And joining us now is the Police Commissioner, Dr. Kevin Blake, to discuss the recent reduction in murders and the progress being made toward the rollout of body-worn cameras. Welcome to Nationwide this morning, Dr. Blake.
Good morning. Good morning to you, and good morning to your listeners.
Thank you so much for joining us here on the front page. Dr. Blake,
My
I
pleasure.
just got your latest commentary, and I was able to read through it. And a part of the commentary stood out to me where you said this isn't luck, it's strategy, it's organizational development, it's theory-informed practice, and it's working in relation to the progress being made now with our homicide numbers. If you could talk to us about that strategy that is helping to minimize the country's homicide rate as well as other major crimes.
Okay, gladly. Thanks much. And let me start. First by saying that many times when the figures are going north, we tend to say that it's someone else's fault or it's someone else is not doing something, and so we tend to shy away from responsibility. And not just the JTF, but it's a general thing. I think it's a human nature thing. But when success is there, we tend to take credit. Let me hasten to say that credit doesn't solely belong to the Jamaica Constabulary Force. We have been working very closely with our partners, particularly the Jamaica Defense Force and other law enforcement entities, but also to the citizens of Jamaica, the public themselves. I often say to my colleagues, and when I address members of the public, that a decision that a citizen make to resolve a conflict without violence is helping to reduce violence in our society. And so we won't take credit for the overall success that we're seeing. What I must say, though, is with respect to our strategy, we are the organization with primary responsibility over public safety and public order. And so much of that responsibility is ours. With respect to the strategy, there are several things that have happened over the last couple of years. So we speak often about the transformation of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, and in many forums, I've heard persons ask, we heard about the transformation, but what about crime fighting? What about the crime fighting strategy? Well, let me say, it is one and the same. It is one and the same. So much of what we have been doing over the last couple of years, significant investment in our technology, significant investment and recruitment in bringing our numbers up. And so over the last couple of years, we have increased our strength, where we are now, for the first time in several years, almost at our establishment. And so we have a lot more police on the street. We have increased our fleet significantly over the last couple of years. We have far better and more enhanced intelligence capability. And as a result of these support and resources, we are now able to embark much more effectively on some key strategies, one of which is our focus deterrent strategy. And what that is, many times people say, well, do not tell people your strategy and stuff. The fine-tuned tactics, of course, definitely those remain ours. But this overall broad strategy is for public knowledge. And it is where we prioritize our resources around the highest risk targets. And what do I mean? And so when you have a year with several murders, and a capacity to investigate and successfully investigate and clear 60% of those murders. That number represents a number over 600 such cases that have been successfully investigated, and some in instances put before the courts in some instances. That is an achievement that not many police force anywhere this side of the world can boast in any 1 year. What it means, therefore, is that increasing that capacity, we have to now think whether or not we're going to increase that capacity or we're going to bring the numbers down where it meets our capacity. And how do we do that? the first thing to do is to look at those high-risk individuals. Those individuals who have killed 10 and 15 persons last year are the most high-risk individuals and the most likely ones who are going to kill 10 and 15 this year. And so our focus is around these individuals in order to deter. And so hence the term focus deterrence. What do we mean by focusing around these individuals? Pull all stump, everything that we have in terms of investigation. When someone commits 5 or 6 murders, there's always some investigative opportunity in 1 or 2 of those murders, enough to put these individuals away. And so we pull all resources that we have around these individuals, not necessarily just the incident themselves, but the individuals themselves. And so these individuals are not given the space to continue to plan, to create mayhem, and to continue to murder our citizens.
Hold your point right there, Dr. Blake. We're going to take a break. We're speaking with the Police Commissioner, Dr. Kevin Blake. Welcome back to Nationwide this morning. We're having a conversation with the Police Commissioner, Dr. Kevin Blake. Before the break, Dr. Blake was talking to us about the strategy of the police force now to get the homicide numbers down. He mentioned great improvement in intelligence in the fleet of the police, the fleet of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, as well as the number of police personnel, and improvement as well in a number of their capabilities. And within that conversation before the break, Dr. Blake was mentioning that the Jamaica Constabulary Force has been prioritizing their resources to go after high-risk targets, he describes them, persons who are out there killing 10, 15 people. And he is reasoning that you have those persons out there, if they're killing 10, 15 people, they're likely to do it this year and the other year and the other year. So they're prioritizing resources around those high-risk targets. He wanted to complete a point, Dr. Blake, before we move on.
Right. Basically, you summarize it well. That was just an explanation of our focus deterrence strategy, where it's a priority approach, priority-based approach, a risk-based approach, and also an approach that seeks to deter. Bear in mind, these individuals are the nucleus in every gang. And sometimes when you can sufficiently take those nucleus and put them before the court and take them off the street, then even some of the peripheral gang members will find gainful employment and be deterred from a life of crime. So that is the approach that we're taking. One of the most profound aspects of our strategy, however, is clearly articulating a vision, having our members understanding that vision and believing in that vision. And so what you find happening, every member of the Jamaica Constabulary Force understands what we're trying to achieve. And we try to get this vision, these goals aligned to their own value system. And so people are not doing these things. They internalize this. They are not doing these things through compliance. Mm-hmm. They are not operating the way they operate because they fear punishment or they're seeking some reward, but because we communicate the strategy, the goal that we want to achieve as a nation, not just as an organization, but as a nation, and they believe in it. And it is evidenced through the type of briefing that you see taking place when you go in the stations and the divisions and read the station diary entries, when you hear our commanders articulate at our conferences and stuff like that, a shared vision. And so when you have that level of vision and understanding, it makes a difference between just mere presence on the street and command presence. Right? I often tell people, if you are going to participate in a motor car race, then you have to prepare that motor car well. And so this transformation of an organization is preparing that motor car to take on the challenge of crime and violence in our society. I think that's one of the biggest strategies. I wrote about it last week, the collective efficacy of the force, where everyone understands the goal, everyone understands the vision, and everyone delivers because they see the value of that to their own and aligned with their own value system.
In the numbers, speaking of the numbers now, Dr. Blake, it has been put out there to the public that we're trying to achieve this year trying to ensure that we don't go above 800 murders this year. How is the JCF planning to sustain that progress that we're now seeing now in terms of the
We
trend?
sustain it by continuing doing what we're doing. Do not relent. You know, there's this phenomenon in Jamaica about a 9-day wonder. Things happen 9 days after. I mean, but we have no choice but to continue. And I often say to my people, when criminals are fleeing and running away from the police, it takes them away from what their core business is and what they do. When we pursue criminals, that is what we do. We're not taking time off from work to pursue them. It means, therefore, we can sustain it and we will sustain it. This is what we do. This is what we do. Obviously, we operate in a dynamic environment. Crime and violence is one of the most dynamic environments. It's around the issue of human behavior. And so, and we'll be naive to think that these individuals do not look, assess, analyze, and re-strategize. The important thing is how soon can we respond, how flexible we are, and how agile we are in our response. And we have seen that. I always use the term to my colleagues, resilience. Resilience is not falling down. It is how quickly we get up after we've fallen. You've seen a number of instances. We have multiple shooting incidents. We have seen fight days, even while the number is looking good. There are days that we get up and wake up to a very horrible 24-hour. But what do we do when the train starts going off track? We have to put it back on track very quickly before it is derailed. And that is how we intend to sustain it. That's how we intend to sustain it. As I said before, as long as we keep our force believing in the vision, highly motivated and highly mobilized, then we will and continue to get the support from the public and from the government in providing the resources that we need. I assure you that will continue. Also, I want to quickly say that it is important that we have the support of the people. One of the things that these criminals fear most is alienation from their communities and the support bases. And that space we want to occupy. That trust we want to build with the communities so that they don't see criminals as their heroes. They see us, the police and agents of the state. So yes, we will continue.
Let's move, Commissioner, morning again to what I want to call the body camera segment. Sure. Here's this thing now. You have people in different fields of endeavor who say, listen, there's no reason for the police not to have more cameras in deployment because guess what? People can buy a GoPro, put on their helmet, ride their bicycle, ride their motorcycle, skateboard. So cameras easy to get. People can buy a camera to shoot an event, to record a podcast, to cover a large crowd. So you can go on eBay, any of these sites, and you can get the cameras that the police need. Isn't this a myth?
They're correct that you can go and buy cameras. Cameras, I mean, depending on the camera you're talking about, may not be as expensive. But that is if we're pinning devices on individuals. No, we're not doing that. What we're doing is building a body-worn camera system. And that's a complete different story. Complete different story. I hear people mention that, well, we see security companies quickly implement body-worn cameras. Yeah, a security company with 50 security guards. If we had 50 police, we would have had body-worn. We wouldn't be having this discussion today. Right? I have 8,000 operational, close to 14,000 sworn officers, where 8,000 of them are operational. That is not an easy thing. It's not a matter of just pinning a device. When I talk about the system, and so this is it, George. When you put a body-worn camera on a police officer, this entire activity for that day, any one activity or series of activities can become the subject of an investigation or a court proceeding 4 or 5 years from now. It means, therefore, that has to be preserved, properly handled, and in a state where it has evidential value. How do we do this? Very few data, very few items generate the type of resource demanding data that done by the one camera, or cameras, I must say. Video and photograph demand huge resources to transmit and to store, unlike text and to some extent voice. When you have an organization with 8,000 operational persons using body-worn cameras, we have to ensure that those footages are kept, first of all, are streamed from the body-worn cameras, and so you require huge network bandwidth for that right across the country, and so that has to be done. So we're talking about infrastructure. These are the things I'm talking about. But then it has to go somewhere and stored, and it has to be managed, and we have to have, and so we have to have a data center. We're talking about 8,000 persons with body-worn cameras doing all sorts of activity in a 24-hour period. A whole lot of data we're talking about. So that has to be stored, and it has to be stored for a long time.
So this idea, Commissioner, that you have a camera, you have something like a SD card in it from memory. You walk up and down in the corporate area on your beat for the whole day, go back to the station at the end of the day, take out the card, send it to somewhere to be stored. That's not how it works.
No, it doesn't work like that, and you don't want it to work like that either. You don't want it to work like that either. Immediately, chain of custody, exposure of the data, all of that, it loses its evidential value, and it is not as simple as that. And so even if that were the case, that data must now move from your station to somewhere. It cannot reside on your computer in your office, because when that computer goes down, all of that goes.
Yes.
And so it must be transmitted to a data center.
So you're saying that the network then, so when you say network, and you keep stressing network, so if you have 500 body cams deployed on any one day, it must be that you have an apparatus, a system that is taking from each of those cameras real time any activity once the camera is engaged.
All right. So let me just correct one aspect of that. The cameras have the capability to do that real time. We don't always do that real time. We don't always do that real time in order to save data storage. Mm-hmm. And so what we do, the camera stores that. You go to the station, and there's a device that you dock it, and then it is streamed. But that requires network as well, because there are several hundred cameras streaming at the same time. While you can have an operation, or you can have the camera stream real time as you have just described. But we have the option of not going real time. Mm-hmm. But either instance requires significant bandwidth. And when I talk about bandwidth, I'm talking about network capacity to stream. This is not text. When you send a text message, you're on your computer and you get an email, and that email coming in, that's a text email. And so those are easy, very lightweight, and not resource demanding. When it's a video, on the other hand, especially high quality video, and this is the next thing, because we can transmit data, we can transmit video. But then by the time it gets to the server, a lot of the value goes, because you can reduce the quality, and in so doing reduce the size.
Yeah.
But then it makes the determination when you're in court whether or not someone can look at that image and say, yes, that was that individual, because now the the quality is reduced.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would not have been an option. It means we had to spend expensive amount in building and upgrading that network infrastructure, huge capacity, and these are things we're talking about the whole country now. It's not talking about a building or a company with 2 offices. We're talking about close to 300 properties across the country.
And it's not as if at the end of the month, when you say, well, you know what, listen, our storage capacity is nearing to be maximized, just dump some things and start fresh again. You can't do that.
No, we have to archive. Now we have to have the ability to go back in that archive. When Indicom or anyone requires that data, we have to go back in that archive, and it has to be done in a controlled manner. So we have to have software that can extract that video in a way that it still has evidential value, so that when it goes to the court, the court doesn't waste time wondering whether or not this is authentic.
Hold the line for us, Dr. Blake. Hold the line for us. We're going to take another break. Come right back with more.
You call it the body cam segment,
Yes,
George.
it is.
That's a segment that we're still in. Speaking with the police commissioner, Dr. Kevin Blake, on the matter of body-worn cameras. Dr. Blake was explaining to us the capacity that will be needed in terms of storing the footage that will come from these body-worn cameras and how they will be operational daily when the men and women of the police force adorn those onto their helmets or perhaps their uniform. Dr. Blake wanted to ask you, so for this storage that is needed for the body-worn cameras and the bandwidth and all of that you were explaining, are we anywhere down the line in terms of that build-out?
We have completed all of that, The only reason for the explanation, and I'm glad you asked the question, because I've heard persons saying things that show that my communication may have been misunderstood. I'm not saying that we need to get these things done. That is in response to criticism that we have not yet deployed body-worn camera, and it is as easy as buying some cameras and pinning on individuals, even some so-called experts I hear. So what I've been explaining is what we have been doing over the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
We have that bandwidth. Everything I just tell you about, is in place. There's no need, there's no requirement for storage at this point in order to accommodate body-worn cameras. I've never said that. What I've been saying is that this is what we have been doing, and I've said it many times before. When you have a budget, it doesn't make sense I buy a hubcap until I can find a car to put it on. So it doesn't make sense I buy the body-worn cameras at that huge number before I have the infrastructure to manage body-worn camera. And that's what we have been doing over the last 2 years.
Does JFJ know this, Commissioner?
We had a very nice meeting. I called them in to brief them on it and stuff, and they were aware. No, for sure, because one of the things that we tend to do is, and including ourselves as members of the JCF, just pick up information rather than as two entities, as organizations, come and speak clearly. We pick up a lot of the narrative that is out there and misinformation, misguided information, and stuff like that. So we thought it was important that we speak deliberately and do not assume that these things that I have been saying in a little 5-minute interview and stuff like that is sufficient to give that understanding. And so we did that. And so they do have this understanding now. So it is not that we are saying that we don't yet have the storage where you're calling for me to say when we're going to have the storage. We do have. Are we talking about technology? I'm sure you know that technology changes. You know that demands increase, and we will forever be improving and stuff. When we had our network, our microwave network, it was the envy of the Caribbean. But yet we had to invest billions of dollars in expanding that and improving that. And so, of course, you will continue to have improvement in our infrastructure and spend in our infrastructure. So it will always be a budget item.
When you say,
but we're not waiting on that now in order to implement body-worn cameras. No, we're buying the cameras.
Right. Oh, so okay. So I'm coming back to that. But you say, just to nail this down, when you said that JFJ have been told about what you just explained to us, this was, of course, before last Tuesday's event or subsequent to?
No, after, man. No. I don't think they would know that and make utterances that are misleading. I don't think they would do that.
So after the protest, you met with them and you briefed them on where you were?
Certainly. Because I realized that when I see the utterance, I do not think that it was a deliberate attempt at misleading. And so I realized that there may be some communication gap. And so it is important that we speak directly rather than picking up our information from comments out there and little snippets and stuff like that. So we had a very good meeting. Where that is concerned.
Where's the paperwork now with buying the cameras? Now that you have the infrastructure.
Great. So we have spent over $1 million, close to $100 million, in those that we already have. Because this is it, the fact that we're building out the infrastructure didn't mean that we were not buying cameras at the time. We just weren't going at the huge number. Right, so we have 600, a little over, close to 700 operational cameras. We have we have about 750 cameras. Some are used for training purposes and for testing and stuff like that. But operational cameras, we have, I think, 670. I don't remember the exact figure. I think 674. Right? And so those that are a cost of almost 100 million. We have also we started the procurement of 1,000 body-worn cameras last year. A procurement guideline can be a little bit tricky sometimes. There was a hiccup in it. If it were not for that hiccup, we would have had those cameras before before December last year. So that was the intention, and to have them deployed for the festive season. However, we are at the final stages of procurement for those cameras, for those 1,000 cameras, and we have budgeted for 4,000, which include the 1,000 that is in procurement now. That are in procurement now, and we've budgeted 4,000 cameras over the next 3 fiscal years.
Yeah.
Just before you move on, George, in relation to the cameras, Commissioner, the National Security Minister was on last week, and he was saying that he doesn't think that the body-worn cameras are of any value to police personnel who are on planned operations. He was saying that there may be need for specially designed cameras that are fitted to helmets for those personnel who are going out on operations. What's the view of you as a CP?
Yeah, man, and he's correct. The minister didn't just come and speak. Minister is a minister, not a law enforcement practitioner. So he has done his research. All right, so this is it. So I've heard calls about planned operation where body-worn cameras were not deployed, and juxtapose that with fatal shooting, and use words like alarming, and put all of that out there for the public to know, form their perception. Unfortunately, the perception they have formed is that we are pushing back on body-worn cameras because we do not want to be held accountable around fatal shootings that are concerning, or most of which are concerning, and I suspect that's why the word alarming, and things. But that's not the case. That's far from the case. First of all, let me just quickly say that I don't know that any sensible person or organization will invest close to $7 billion in something that they have no interest in. I don't know that is a logical thing. And that's what we've been doing. So the idea that we're pushing back on body, I'm not saying that any of these entities have said that. I'm saying that the information and all the information is packaged and put out there. That's the perception some people have. You see it on social media, you see it all over the place, and which is unfortunate. With respect to operation and body-worn, and this is it, when persons make pronouncement, they need to be experienced. You can't just read a document. You have to be. It requires experience in the field, right? Right now, I have gotten requests from members about certain aspects of the paraphernalia that they wear in the uniform and an operation. Some things that people may not know is that even when you're going on an operation, there are certain things that you can't do, you cannot carry with you. A body-worn camera, these body-worn cameras that we have bought are for primarily used in things like traffic stop, engagement with the public, in public order spaces and stuff like that. Why? The moment those cameras are activated, there are 2 red lights that flash on them to show that there's some indication that camera is active and it is operating. Those may not be the best thing in a planned operation. And just forgive me for not going in detail as to why on these operations. Just leave it to you and your members to understand why. So when people talk about not wearing the very same body-worn cameras in planned operations, right, people have to just bear in mind that my average inspector served a minimum of 20 years in the force doing the same thing. There's a little bit about policing that we may know, right? And so that's one. The second thing is, when I have limited resource, I want the biggest bang for my buck. And so in recent times, we have seen a very troubling trend where persons fight police officers, passerbys, persons observing an arrest being conducted, and everybody believes that the police shouldn't and want to adjudicate the matter right there on the scene and fight the police and fight off and try to free the person who's been arrested. It is an extremely dangerous trend. It's a dangerous trend for the police, a dangerous trend for the citizen, and it's a dangerous trend for the rule of law. The day when you have police officers who cannot conduct arrests, then it becomes an organization or law enforcement that has absolutely no use. And so it's a trend that had to be arrested. Right? We have taken several steps, including imploring members to give the police space, let them operate. If you believe the police is doing something that are conducting an arrest and the person should not have been arrested, on the scene at the time, in an intense situation, is like that is not the place for you to seek redress. Also, what we have done, we have prioritized persons that are doing traffic duties and are in public spaces like our beat officer patrol division. And let me tell you what that does. What it has done, and I personally have been on the street in downtown Kingston, speaking to vendors, speaking to shoppers and the general public. And one thing that they say to you is that when the police is conducting an arrest in these areas and people want to intervene, the moment they see the lights flashing, they step back and give the police space. Why? Because they know that we analyze the camera later on. Mm-hmm. And if you were seen on the camera obstructing the police, then we will come and visit you at a time when it's convenient, when you don't have the crowd around you, and people know that, and once the face is captured, and we know that it's them. And so, as a result of that, we have seen a significant decline of that practice. And so that is where when I have 8,000 operational members and 600 body-worn cameras, that is going to be my priority.
Yeah. Let me ask you before, you finished with the point?
It is a follow-up question. I wanted to address the issue around the types of cameras for operation.
Yes,
and whether
for sure, yes.
Of course, we are going to be putting cameras, and we are looking at specing them out and procuring them. The thing is, we have to bear in mind that those specialized cameras are not the same as the cameras that we're buying now in terms of cost and capability. And they're made specifically for that. There's a thing about body-worn camera. It's called body-worn camera because it's worn on your body. And in intense operation, sometimes, and our incident, is your body that you first take out of the line of fire with the camera. And so many times the footage from the body-worn camera doesn't help. As a result of that has led to more advanced type cameras, with that bears in mind that reality. And so it is not about just buying some cameras and putting it on persons. When your security guard puts as a camera, as a body-worn camera, that security guard see a traffic, a person violating or see a person walking with a firearm, has absolutely no legal right to intervene and confront that individual. The police has. And so it is not the same. It's not the same. And these technologies are mindful of this. These are technologies built from research that we benefit from today.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you before we go, we're way past the time, but we couldn't have you here and you do the usual thing. My producer is kidding behind the glass. One more question, Michelle. And this concerns, listen, there was a time, police commissioner, when, let's talk facts.
Yes.
People who were police personnel were regarded as, well, him turn police or she turn police because she's not bright. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And I say that because I want to ask about the quality of the human resource that you are working alongside and working with. And not just in terms of the degrees and the higher degrees that people have, but say something about the caliber of the brain power that is in the JCF today and which the JCF is now attracting today in greater numbers than at any other time in its history.
Do you have, you say we're over time. Do you have another half an hour?
Let's make it as quick as possible, Commissioner.
All right, listen, I'm going to do. Listen, it's hard to speak about brain power without looking at that which assess person's readiness or capability outside of just your work, and which is a degree. So having a degree doesn't necessarily is the only thing that determines it, but it's a good litmus test, a good benchmark. We have probably the largest number of tertiary qualified individuals in this side of the world in any organization. And I say that without fear of contradiction. We have several persons with PhD. I myself have supervised a candidate who have a year and a half ago received their PhD. And everybody that studies, everyone that studies, especially at that level, study policing, security, technology for security, not something abstract from what they do. And so all of that is coming back in the force. We have Mr. Dr. Gary Mackenzie, who have recently completed his PhD in police psychology. Right? We have persons joining the organization with bachelor's and master's degree in droves. We have persons going almost every member of the High Command, almost every member of the Officer Corps have at minimum a bachelor's degree and stuff. And so we have, even as Commissioner of Police, I have had requests from persons who have left the organization a few years ago. One individual that comes to memory right away, earning salary more than 4 times what he would earn as a consul when he left. And have written to me asking me permission to rejoin the organization, leave overseas and come back and rejoin the organization. And so it is not only attracting new people, but it is attracting persons who have left wanting to come back. So this argument, well, I don't know that it is an argument anymore. I don't know that's an argument anymore. I know in the past people used to say that, but I don't think we have that type of narrative anymore.
But believe us, Dr. Blake, from our end and what you view, your analytics that you watch totally different from those we watch. People do say that, and especially when investigations are not running in the way they see them run during an episode of Law and Order or CSI. Then them start talking about Dunn's Police. So it was necessary to put that on the line for you to speak to it.
Yeah, man, I'm happy you did. And let me just quickly say, I know we're running out of time, that our National Police College of Jamaica that trains and prepares civilians to become police officers and also train police officers who are in service as well as leaders, has last year achieved the IDLS, International Association of Directors of Law Enforcement Standards and Training, which is an accreditation. It makes us one of 34, only 34 police academies worldwide to ever achieve that. No, that is an institution that is preparing our already brilliant persons who are coming in the organization and those who are serving. And so probably, as I said, often the onus of the message is on the communicator. And probably we need to improve our communication. If we really still have people thinking like that, we really need to do better. We communicate who we are.
Hear you on that. A lot this morning from you. Very much appreciate your time this morning, Police Commissioner.
Pleasure's mine.
And we hope it doesn't take another year for you to come back.
No, certainly not.
Thank you this morning, sir.
Hopefully I will not be that busy over the next year, so I can speak with you again soon.
Very well,
but
sir.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. That's the Police Commissioner. All the best to you, Police Commissioner Dr. Kevin Blake. He's in the rare position, Turner, of being a police commissioner who's being commended by both government and opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? I can't tell when last, if ever in my lifetime, you had any police commissioner who was being praised by both government and opposition.
And has gotten significant support from the public.
From the public. His cachet quite high.